dear colleagues, it's a pleasure for me to be here in this nice Spain, in this nice city of this really nice and friendly country in Spain, myself. And I guess it's pertinent that maybe less fun. We heard about networking at dinner. We will talk about networking, but not at dinner. But I think it's also an important topic. See if some of you are already sending and collecting data and getting into EuroNeoNet. Maybe at the end of the session, some of you will also consider to contribute to that effort and at the same time get benefit from benchmarking and quality improvement efforts. And eventually, and that will be the last part of my talk, maybe a platform for randomized clinical trials. Forward. Okay. So basically, my talk will be divided briefly. I'll talk a few words about networking for research. We'll talk about neonatal networks, and then in general, and then I will concentrate in European networks, basically starting with the one that I have the pleasure to coordinate so far, EuroNeoNet, and also from some 7 framework projects of the field of medicine for children, GRIP and neocirculation, and at the end, and PREMA, the group related to clinical trials and development of safe medicine for children, the EMEA, which is now chaired by Mark Turner, that he's somewhere around. And at the end, about the Spanish Neonatal Research Network that also have the pleasure to coordinate. So networking, for Spanish, networking is sort of, at the beginning was sort of a strange word. We don't have a word to say that, but actually what that means is a group of people, organizations, closely connected to work one with the other. But we should stress that toward a common end. Otherwise, this is not really networking worth for research. Of course, networking, we share information or services among these groups, individual institutions, but actually networking is more than a word. It's really a concept that from now on really most of the important work has to be in collaboration from some other of our colleagues. And related to research, actually is a sort of a cultivation, a productive relationship, again with a common goal, I'm sorry. When I reviewing what's in there in the world about neonatal research network, in general, sometimes it's individual initiative, and EuroNeoNet started as a sort of individual initiative, either academic or neonatal societies or ad hoc, and probably some of the papers are going to be presented here, randomized clinical trials of highly important workout or networks that are built up specifically for this network. This takes a lot of effort, it has a lot of merit, but maybe there are more efficient ways of setting up a network for people having ideas to do randomized clinical trial, and that they had some experience to push those trials forward. Of course, there are very paradigmatic neonatal networks. Manuel has mentioned, started with Berman Oxford, a different setup, Berman Oxford and ICDH, National Institute of Health, the one in Canada, and a good friend, Julie, will be taking the stage right after me, or the Australian and New Zealand network, and some others around the world. So they basically are national or European funded agencies. This is also a step forward of just voluntarily setting up networks. In the USS, as I said, basically we all know about Berman Oxford, maybe some of your units are belonging to that initiative. And also they have done really a nice work producing non-pharmacological, mainly randomized clinical trial. And the same thing has done the National Institute of Child Health and Research from the NIH. And also Canadian neonatal networks, randomized clinical trials, especially in the field of quality improvement and implementation research. Probably in Europe, we have to recognize the good work is doing in England by MCRN, the Medicine for Children Research Network. They really are very effectively able to produce randomized clinical trials. At the last word I heard, they had already a record of more than 150 randomized clinical trials, 60% of that publicly funded, 40% from private research. And similar structures, I guess in a smaller size, are also running, as far as I know, in Netherlands, Finland, and I'm sorry if I forget any other European country that you might know about. One of the paradigmatic, probably because it's public, is the NICDH network. It's built in '86 under the umbrella of the Ernest Kennedy Shriver National Institute of Child Health and Human Development. And as I said, they are randomized clinical trials, but they also now have set up another network, the pediatric trial network, that it's starting to produce some randomized trials, mainly in the field of medicines. When I look at the term network in Google, I was shocked. 1,850 million hits. And coming down a more specific search term, even European Neonatal Clinical Research Network, I got 2.5 million hits. So there was no way I could sort out what was in there. So I decided to talk to you today about the networks that I somehow involved with, that I think they represent different structures at European, at the national level, for you to see what's going on in Europe if you don't already know about it. EuroNeoNet, it's a voluntary collaboration that is now funded publicly by the Director General of Health, DG SANCO, of the European Commission. We started with quality assessment and perinatal care in very low birth infants in Europe. We now move forward to quality improvement initiative. We have an initiative led by Professor Helmut Humbler, who's also in the audience, about prevention of intraventricular hemorrhage, and also about patient safety in general and prevention of nosocomial infection in particular. But right from the beginning, we thought that the network could also work as a platform to help to develop at the European level a network to facilitate randomized clinical trial for individual researchers or groups of researchers that are willing to take that. We have the copyright from Berman Oxford, has to be stressed. You cannot use this data set unless you have that copyright. And we use a virtual environment to send and collect data up to date, at least up to date to some time ago, and we were searching to find really more up-to-date technology to facilitate data entry on our network. And now and then, more than 200 European neonatal networks are units are sending data, and about over 5,000 baby data sets a year we are collecting. Here you have the names of the partners of different ages, of different countries, up north and south, east and west from Europe, that are the steering committee of EuroNeoNet that have been helping along to set up and do the work here. EuroNeoNet is not a population-based data, and that's a criticism that I made and somebody pointed out in the previous session, but we do have population or quasi-population clusters within our network. And I have to say that is the case of Sweden, you can say here, is the case of Northern Ireland, is the case of Portugal. The oldest neonatal network in Europe is the Portuguese network, and that has to be said. The Spanish network, a network in Switzerland, and then some regional networks, especially, as I said, in Northern Ireland and also in the Lazio region. Otherwise, there's a scatter unit sending data. Initially, we thought about the idea of EuroNeoNet being the platform for single units to bring data. We eventually realized that the ideal situation would be that each of the 27, or most of the 27 European countries should have their own neonatal network, and then collect data and send the data to a national platform to get, especially for networking, because otherwise this comparison of small numbers might not work that well for you. We produce annually an inform. You can also query the website and get some additional information immediately. But basically, you are positioned against the others. So you realize that you are in that end, you're doing good, both the mean and the standard deviation below the average. But if you are here, you've got to do something to decrease. So EuroNeoNet gives you, points out to you specific areas in which you should work and try to get quality improvement to improve the outcomes. And also as a tool to then measure if these efforts that you are making, quality improvement efforts that you're making, really are successful or not. But we wanted to move upon that. One thing that we really crash, as many other people that have started, would be to have a common, standardized, homogenized, and agree upon follow-up, minimum follow-up data set to use for benchmarking. We try, under the leadership of Mike and Wendling, and we did that, taking some of the information from different countries, mainly for the good work done in in the UK. And that has been implemented, and a few units are sending the data set, but not all. When we try to go forward and go to 4 years, again, we crash even further than that. First of all, it's difficult to get a sort of an agreement, and so far, not a single unit has complied and sent data for that. So this is a big challenge there, and somebody should take that challenge and see if we can push it forward to sort of get a general agreement on a data set. People like Helmut Kuster tried a few years ago under the umbrella of the SPR. The past president of the SPR also tried to do that, but so far as I know, there is not an agreement. We also, as I said, we moved to quality improvement initiative. I would not specify a lot about it because we don't have yet funds and we cannot offer that, but we can offer you the measuring system that is already used in some countries, I guess in Portugal and in Belgium and in Germany, of course, if we're going to develop, which is the NeoKISS system. It's a surveillance system to really know the infections related to the devices, not just the rate the networks use, developed by Charité and now in use in all networks. And if you are more interested in that on tomorrow's talk, I would specify a bit more about that. The next thing that we concentrate would be on this, the Medicine for Children program. Word is out that maybe in the next research program from the European Union, Horizon 2020, they might not be a specific Medicine for Children project, but that hopefully that would not be the case, but we'll see. The idea is that we need, as you know, specific drug development, but not only new drugs, we also need new indications, and we need new preparations, safe new preparations for children. So the European Commission set up a program trying to fund both individual developments for individual drugs, and at the same time, two projects, TEDdy, which was in the past, and now the GREE project, that's been financed from 2011 to 2015, and the leader is a pediatrician from Padova, which is I will tell you about a bit later. So the GREE project is set up as a network of excellence. It's a large collaboration of many individuals and institutions, but the important thing is not only a European project, it's also farther beyond, because the NICH also participate. The Japan National Collaboration also collaborate, and even the WHO, and lately even people from Canada, the Sick Kids, also are collaboration with that, and we have on board a small pharmaceutical and also a parent organization. So that's trying to get. The original idea is that there are a lot of children in Europe, at the last count I have about 20% of the population, and the number of pediatricians probably seems appropriate, but there are, at this count there were only 12 pediatric clinical pharmacologists out there. In some countries like Spain, we don't have any. So, and few randomized clinical trials are done, a few pediatric preparation, and most drugs, as you know, are used off-label. So the idea of GRIP was to, first of all, the most important thing that is still in the building up, they're starting to have practical sessions on the road until they develop the full training program, is to develop a training program for training for pediatric clinical pharmacologists, but not only for doctors, also for hospital pharmacists, for nurses, and for trialists. So the idea is to set up a palette of modules to be given out. Most of it will be virtual, but a few face-to-face meetings, and that's, you heard about that in the near future. Another task, difficult one, would be to identify the blocks that stop the development of medicine for children, and then, if you know the blocks, try to propose how to overcome those blocks, and trying to harmonize and validate specific research tools for measurements to easy out things when you want to set up a clinical trial. And at the same time, as I said before, to do international collaboration. Now a few words about two specific projects that have been also funded by the by the 7th Framework Program. There are others out there, but those are the ones I know. Neocirculation, which is actually led by the past president of the ESPR, Heike Rabe, and it's a collaborative project actually trying to develop a formulation of the butamine for newborns and finding biomarkers for neonatal shock. Our group mainly collaborates on the preclinical trials in an animal model. It's a large also collaboration of enterprises and academic institutions. Some of the trials are already, the initial pilot trials are already trial, and they are we're gearing up to set up the main trials in the future. So this is a sort of an outlook of a European neonatal network concentrated basically on benchmarking, moving to quality improvement, and ideally maybe could help to develop this platform for clinical trials, and then do specific networks set up by the European Commission to develop specific drugs. There are others, as I said, and also to globally to try to deblock or break the blocks that block the development of children. The other network that finally I would like to talk to you about is the Spanish Maternal and Child Health and Human Development Network. That's also a collaboration of different, not only neonatologists, we have also some obstetricians on board, and we also have some pediatricians interested in follow-up, neurodevelopmental or nutrition follow-up, and you will see, here you are, that related to neonatology was the groups that are present there almost every year, like the one in La Paz de Madrid, Fernando Cabañas and Lina Pellicer, the one from 12 de Octubre with Carmen Rosa Payas and Hospital La Fe Máximo Vento are part of this network, as I said, as they are some other researchers from the obstetrics and the pediatric field. We've been funded twice already. I guess we were not doing that such a bad work from 2013, the second round, and from 2009, the first round. We're giving what we think is a large amount of money, but actually it's not that much for that many years for that people, but at least we can, for the first time, any network related to pediatrics in Spain has 11 researchers fully paid by the network to do different projects related to the main topic. As you can see here, eventually we took the strategic decision to go for clinical trials. At the beginning there were none, and right now there are 11 trials even started or just about to start related to different fields, different topics in pediatrics. There were 6 related to perinatal and neonatal. Briefly, I would just say that one of them is using low molecular weight heparin to see the effectiveness on preeclampsia to prevent the weight loss and decrease the severity of on the intrauterine nutrition, led by Luis Cabero from Barcelona. One that's been presented in several forums already. The Max Vento is the leader of that, and an international collaboration using the low versus low FiO2 for resuscitation. Probably will heard some things from Max presentation in these days. And then also a Spanish brine of neocirculation that I think they're presenting, I guess today, I forgot, also the first report, Adelina Pellicer, Fernando Cabañas, in the group from el 12 de Octubre. Also, Max Vento's leading a trial on topiramate for the management of seizures within a term or near-term encephalopathy due to hypoxia ischemia, and also part of the effect, trying to set up whether or not it's effective to measure cerebral oxygenation, a trial in Spain led by Fernando Cabañas and in Spanish led by Gordon Grayson, who is now the president of the scientific committee of this meeting. And also gearing up and just about to start a trial to see if education on top of developing a surveillance system will help clinicians to decrease infection rate. There are also some clinical trials related to pediatrics. You have it here as a neonatologist. They're very important trials too, but I would skate describing those trials you have here. You can get a glance on that. So that actually the Red Summit also has a core group in Bilbao that we have trying to set up with some other resources as well, trying to set up a methodological group that could support eventually some trials Initially, we thought those are some of those trials that are run in the state. We have an epidemiology full-time, biostatistician, pharmacologist, microbiologist, and also we are active in the field of prenatal pharmacology, and my colleagues will present a couple of papers in surfactant and fentanyl in the meeting. The last network I would like to talk about is sort of a network not doing clinical trials, but trying to promote the development of clinical trials. It would be sort of a network of networks, the European Network of Pediatric Research and European Medicines Agency. So it's an EMEA-supported network. Initially, a group of people, by consensus, by a double Delphi process, we set up what we thought was the criteria to be met for individual networks to be classified as those already doing high-quality research in clinical trials. I will not go through all of that, but there has some other interests. And recently, Mark Turner has taken over the chair of this group, and hopefully will push that even further than what it already has. And there are other neonatal networks, European neonatal networks. In that workup, there is the German neonatal network and the Italian neonatal network, the Neocirculation group, and also EuroNeoNet there. And also recently, our Spanish network initially was classified as class 3. That would be the inferior decision when we started to do clinical trials. Class 1, and now we're hoping that in the next few days we will classify as 1 because we are actually performing randomized clinical trials. In EuroNeoNet, as I said, we took the strategic decision to build the platform to promote and perform randomized clinical trial. Our scope is a bit beyond pediatrics because we have very active groups in perinatal, so in pregnant women, which is also the last frontier, in neonate children and pre-adolescents, and trying to then, with those funds that we're already getting and searching for additional funds, and just next year, sometime in late February, we have a meeting with all the parties involved in Madrid trying to set up a discussion, not about the problems, but about the possible solutions to really put Spain also in the gears to do clinical trials in general and specifically in pediatrics. And my last part of the talk would be whether or not there is time or appropriateness or there is a need for a European clinical network for clinical trials. Again, not to do trials, but just support somehow trials of individuals that will put up and in a fair, transparent competition trials, and then try to help also, if possible, to get research. Some of the people in the EuroNet steering committee seem to be interested in that, so we have just taken the field discussions of a step, not really action has been taking place, but I guess the aim would be to help to develop and conduct pharmacological or non-pharmacological randomized clinical trials at European level. Some larger countries can do it, some smaller countries cannot do it by just nationally, so the idea is that maybe another platform that you could look forward if you design a trial and you're willing to get a large trial and have different units to get in. It's a collaboration also somehow with the Greek partners and with a French pharmacologist, Evelyn Jacques-Green, where by consensus again we're trying to develop sort of a standard of what a neonatal unit should have to really be qualified to do randomized clinical trials, to participate in randomized clinical trials, and hopefully we would try to get recognition of the different entities, the EMEA, ENCRIN, et cetera, and also enhance our relationships with the different networks. Especially, we have a very close link with the Canadian Neonatal Network, initially through Shuli, the next speaker, and also with them trying to set up some international collaboration, mainly to start with benchmarking, but eventually, I hope. So the questions would be, it is a good idea, it's up to you to decide. It is needed, I would think it is. It is feasible, that's a big question. Times are not really that great in Europe to attend that, but we will take time at least to get organized. Hopefully by then things will get better. It is the right time, as I said, questionable if it's not, but what would be the best strategy to set it up? And maybe the idea would be to start with a small non-pharmacological sort of proof of concept trials to see if we can get. If there is anyone interested, you can get in contact with, you don't have to write that, but EuroNeoNet, any of the EuroNeoNet entrants, they will we would put a specific place to get comments. And initial plans would be to set up a discussion forum of people that are really interested, so any of you or any of your colleagues that might be interested. Try to develop a working group to set up a series of teleconference. There is no money behind that at that time. And then if this is running, to select a coordinator, of course, longer than I am. And also to outline a developing plan, and also eventually, if that idea works, to start to search for funds, specific randomized clinical trials, and to set up a transparent, as I said, process to select the best ideas for trials to be supported somehow, at least with the organization from EuroNeoNet. This is a thank you to my group, without whom I would not be presenting all these efforts here, and thank you very much, President, for your kindness to allow me a few more minutes for my talk.